Hello and welcome to this video presentation. My name is Paul Brett. I'm a Senior Software Support Analyst supporting the Transformation Extender product from IBM. For today's video, the topic is using DB2 with ITX 10 via JDBC. Feel free to engage with me at popular social media channels at Paul Brett IBM. In this practical demonstration, I will be showing you the configuration of the DB2 Odbc driver. I will show you how to connect the ITX 10 database interface designer to DB2 via the Odbc driver. And finally, I will show you how to generate a type tree via the Odbc driver. Next, we will move on to installation and configuration of the JDBC driver. I will show you how to design and execute a map to retrieve data via JDBC. Then I will show the type tree modifications required to make the Odbc derived type tree work with the JDBC connector. I'm going to start this demonstration on this virtual machine. This machine is running Windows Server 2016 and has DB2 installed. The first thing I'm going to do is bring up the Odbc Data Sources Administrator, where in the System tab you will see that I have no entries defined. I'm also going to bring up the Windows Registry Editor, and you will see that there are no entries in the odbc.ini section of HKey local machine. I'm now going to add an entry into the System DSN. I'm going to be using the IBM DB2 Odbc driver. I'm going to call the entry local DB2, and now that's been added. If I switch back to Windows Registry, you will note when I refresh the screen that we have an entry that says local DB2. However, it's worth noting that under this version, for 64-bit Odbc entries, there is a mistake made in the driver section. What we need to do is edit this driver section and remove CLIO and change it to CLI64. Now when we choose Configure and click on Connect after adding our username and password, we should get a connection succeeded, and we do. Okay, so that's the Odbc specified. Next step is to use that Odbc entry to generate a type tree. I'm in the ITX 10 Extender Studio now, and as you can see I have one project called Project 1, and within that I have one database query file that I've predefined called Query File 1. I also have a type tree called Utility, and I've started a skeleton of a map, test.mms. So let's start with the database query file. As you can see, the entry within it is called local DB2, and if I bring up the properties you will see that I'm using the Odbc driver. I've connected to my data source that I just defined, local DB2, and I've put in my security credentials. And if I double click on tables, you'll note that it brings back a list of all the tables in my database. I'm going to create a query now. The query I'm going to call Query 1, and I'm going to do a select from a predefined table that I created, Test 1. With that query, I'm going to generate a type tree. I'm going to call my type tree Query _ test 1. When I click OK, it says command completed successfully, and it shows me a quick summary of the columns that it's found and put into my type tree. And last thing I'm going to do is save this file. Okay, so that's creating a type tree through the Odbc adapter via the Odbc driver to DB2. For the next step, we're going to open the map source file, test.mms. As you can see, I have one map defined, test1, and at the moment all this does is write to a file called output.txt, and the rule is writing the fixed string stuff. So if I build and run this map, It completes successfully, and in my miscellaneous section I now have an output file which I can open and says stuff. I can drag this output file over here and it will change as I run the map and make changes and give me an instant update on the progress. So let's change the fixed rule stuff to use the JDBC adapter instead to retrieve data from the database. Now I've got the string to connect to the database predefined, so I'm going to copy that to clipboard, paste it into my map, and we'll go through it step by step. I've wrapped my entire rule in a valid, so that if this fails for any reason, we get last error message printed out into the output file instead. So that will give us a clue as to what went wrong if something goes catastrophically wrong. I'm doing a get. This is from the JDBC adapter, and here is my JDBC connection string. It's got several elements and we'll go through them one at a time. Starting with URL, we have JDBC :DB2 2 forward slashes, and then I need my server name followed by a colon and a port number. Now I have localhost 50,000, which is the default for DB2. Finally, I've got /sample, which is the database to which it's going to connect. Next we have user and the username, password and the password, and finally some additional entries: TV to produce a verbose trace, AS, QTY star and LSN 0, all required to ensure that we retrieve all rows from the query. And speaking of query, that's the last entry in the connection string where I put in my actual query, select star from test 1. So let's build and run this map now. I fully expect it to fail because I have not yet implemented the JDBC driver. The map has completed successfully, and as you can see, the output.txt has changed, saying open connection couldn't open the connection. Now, if we go into my extras folder, you will note that I've got a file called db2jcc4.jar. Now this is the driver, and all I have to do is copy this file into my ITX 10 directory in the extjar subdirectory. So I'm going to copy that in now. There it is, it's copied in there. Move those windows out of the way, and I'm going to run my map again. The map has completed successfully again, and now the map has actually retrieved data from the database. 2 rows from my table test 1. Okay, that's all well and good. We're using a get to retrieve the values from JDBC on an output card. What about using an input card to retrieve the data? Well, let's go to the map source file and create a completely new map called test2. In test2, I'm going to create an input card. I'm going to call that card in1. The type tree I'm going to use is the previously imported query_test1.mtt, which was produced, as you remember, with the Odbc adapter. The object I'm going to pick from the picker is dbSelect, and I'm going to change the source from file to JDBC. Next, I need to paste in the entire connection string that I had in my rule. Paste that into my connection box. I'm going to make that a bit bigger before I do that so we can all see that go in. Okay, paste. So again, we've got the URL, the user, password, TV, AS, QTY, LSN, and finally the query. Okay, so that's my input card for test2 defined. A quick reminder, this map was produced to retrieve data from JDBC, but the type tree was defined via an Odbc connection, and I know for a fact that there's some slight manual changes required before the type tree can be used. And to show you what happens when we don't make the changes, I'm just going to build and run, and we're going to get an input valid but unknown data found message. If we turn on the adapter tracing, build and run again. Sorry, that's not adapter tracing, that's map content tracing. And we have a look at that map content trace. you will see that data is being read in, and it's finding an LF sequence at the end of the record. However, what is it actually expecting is a terminator of CRLF. So the JDBC driver is providing string lines terminated with LF, yet the Odbc derived type tree is expecting CRLF. So let's make a quick change to the type tree so that it matches the data that's being retrieved by the JDBC adapter. We'll manually open the tree. We will go to the row object and we will look at the properties. If we look at the terminator under type syntax, you will note that it's a literal CRLF. If I edit that to just be LF, analyze the type tree with tree analyze structure and logic, then save the type tree, including updating the maps. And now I build and run my map again, the map will complete successfully. And that's it. That's how you use the Odbc definition with the Database Interface Designer to generate a type tree that you then later use with a JDBC adapter to retrieve data from DB2. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my video presentation today. If you found the content interesting and informative, please hit that like button. Consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, as I release content such as this on a regular basis. Feel free to reach out to me via social media channels at Paul Brett IBM. Thank you.